For more insights, still in studio, Ruthie Blum, columnist at the Jerusalem Post, Jeremy Saltan, candidate for the Israeli parliament from the Yamina party, and Dr. Raviv Schwartz, expert and commentator on civil society. And Jeremy, I want to go to you because even right here in this studio, Yamina is being wooed by the right and the left. And I'm wondering, what is it going to take for somebody to budge, move away from egos, move away from personal ambitions and say, let's do what's right for the country? Your thoughts?
Well, I think that's what Naftali said in his speech last night. He said that he wants to do what's best for Israel. And again, we've said time and time again, the reason why we've not bought into this Bibi bloc, anti-Bibi bloc, is because we said that this should be about actual issues. This should be about avoiding a fifth election. The minute you commit yourself to either side, you create a situation of another election. You know, we forgot how we got here. There's no state budget. We are the only country around the globe that did not pass a 2020 budget. Forget about the fact we don't have one for 2021 right now. We're on the heels of this, coronavirus, which has done a lot for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to figure out what can be done to have a nice, normal, stable government and steer us away from those fifth elections. It's helpful that everyone wants to, woo us now. It would have been nice if maybe during the election campaign they treated us better, both of the sides. But that's fine. We'll again be the responsible adult right now and do what's best for Israel.
I can see Ruthie wants to respond.
That's politics. That's politics. And egos, excuse me. Can they set aside their egos? That's ridiculous. Politicians have egos. And the fact is, and by the way, not only politicians, if you decided tomorrow to eliminate bylines, I think the entire journalism profession would die right then and there, okay? It's not just politicians. The fact, though, is that if you say Naftali Bennett is going to do what's right for the country, okay, I know he means that, but so does Bibi Netanyahu mean it. And by the way, Gidon Sar probably means it, and your Lapid probably means it in the way they mean it, which is to say, if you let me do it, I'll do it better, okay? And so to say they should eliminate egos is ridiculous. That would be like saying to Naftali Bennett, okay, fine, no Netanyahu, we'll form a government with Lapid and Sar and whoever else and Lieberman, but Naftali will not be the prime minister, and then he won't agree to it, okay? Not that I blame him. These are people who are running in order to become prime minister. What do you mean, set aside your ego? That's ridiculous. They're not going to do that. Otherwise, they'd stay home.
But then promises have been made, and if people renege on those promises, and we've seen this happen before, then again, the promise of making sure that a fifth election won't happen is simply null and void.
So again, I look at the fact that we're in a unique position to be able to try to do something about it. It is very possible, and we're looking at the election results, that neither Netanyahu nor Lapid will have a path to 61. And then you have to get creative. And when you start getting creative, we start talking about various scenarios that we can't even think now because we haven't even seen the final election results. So let's wait and see what's happening. But what we do know is Yamina is going to be very key to whatever key you're looking at in order to fix this situation and avoid a fifth election. That's what it's going to come down to.
Dr. Schwartz, are you surprised at the number of small parties that now are wielding so much power at this juncture?
No, we should clarify that a number of years back, the election threshold was actually raised to avoid the situation in which smaller parties could blackmail at what the time were the two main blocs, the Labour and Likud. Unfortunately, I think for all of us, the net effect of this change in legislation was that small parties could no longer blackmail the larger blocs. Medium parties could then take up the mantle of blackmailing. It hasn't eliminated this peculiar dimension of Israeli politics, which empowers smaller parties to almost dictate terms to the larger ones. I want to mention one thing. one of the peculiarities of the situation we find ourselves in, I mentioned one earlier, whereby a prime minister who has failed to win a majority of the electorate remains in power. Another peculiarity, and I'll say this to the credit of Netanyahu, is he acted in a way, although I think he managed our pandemic crisis in a way that was much more driven or informed by political interests than a concern for the public welfare, clearly his procuring of the vaccine put Israel in a different place relative to the rest of the world. I would suggest that in any other country where the prime minister was so decisive in bringing about what seems to be the end of a pandemic, he would have done a little better in the elections than Netanyahu just did.
And we're going to get reaction to those comments after a very short break. And we're also going to talk a bit about this election system, whether it works, whether it doesn't, and if changes are in the pipeline down the line. Right now, though, a very short break. When we get back, this is